Hey there, welcome to the Tech Tuesdays webinar on what's new in Informatica Axon Data Governance version 7.1. I'm Vrinda and I'll be hosting today's webinar. We have two presenters for today's session, Amrish Thakkar, Director of Product Management, and Ian Stahl, Senior Director of Product Management team. Before we start this webinar, let's go through some housekeeping tips. Today's webinar will be for 1 hour. That includes a 45 minutes webcast, and then we'll roll over to live for 15 minutes to answer your queries. You can post your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them throughout the session, as well as the 15 minutes after that. All dial-in participants will be muted so that the presenter can present without any kind of interruptions. This session is being recorded and will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success portal. The session recording will also be sent to you. You can also put in your feedbacks and suggestions in the end of the webinar, and let us know your thoughts about our Tech Tuesdays webinars as well as the upcoming topics that you would like to have in the future. The Tech Tuesdays webinars is a webinar series introduced within the Success portal. The Informatica Success portal is a microlearning platform that offers free and unlimited learning to all registered users. The Success portal will show up your success offerings, your customer success manager information, bookings available in the Ask an Expert session, and customized recommendation and content. Here are a few important links that you can go over later that will help you in your product adoption journey with Informatica. Over to you, Amrish and Ian. Thank you.
Thank you, Vrinda. So what I'm going to cover in the next half an hour or so is the Axon 7.1 overview of what features and capabilities have been introduced. And Ian will follow up with some updates on the data marketplace side of things. As you can see in 7.1, we have done some significant changes and enhancements to the product. And this ranges from improvements on the Axon EDC front to workflows, to unison updates and bulk upload improvements, performance improvements, and a lot more. So again, over the next few slides, I will go through those items in more detail and give you a quick update on what those are. So let's start with the Axon EDC integration. So Axon EDC has been one of the main features for this release, and there are a few different things that we have done here. And those break up into three large buckets. The first one is sharing more information between Axon and EDC. And I'm talking about bidirectional, right? More information from EDC into Axon as well as vice versa. We have also improvements on the lineage automation side of things. So we had introduced the first version of the lineage automation as part of Axon 7.0, and we are following up with some additional enhancements as part of the 7.1 release. And then the last one is more around the ability to onboard assets in bulk based on certain criteria defined as rules by the users. And it allows you to improve and automate some of the process of discovering and onboarding assets that needs to be governed as part of Axon. So with that said, in terms of information from EDC into Axon, so one of the things that we've done is across the product, across Axon, wherever physical field information exists, we have given you an option to click on it and have a pop-up show up that will give you pretty much all information about the physical field it is associated with, right? What I'm saying is the name, your certification, your technical description, parent information, your data type and length and values, the domains associated, the breakup of null, distinct, and non-distinct values, even the custom attributes from EDC into Axon. And with this, it will significantly reduce the need for the Axon user to go into EDC and to see some of this information. Now, one thing that we have not brought and will not be bringing into Axon is the value frequency, largely because that's data. And for security reasons, we don't want to bring data into Axon, but barring that, you will have most information available in Axon for your users to be able to review more details about the physical field. Now, we have also improved a number of things on what information is available into EDC. And as part of the Axon Scanner, the update that has been made as part of 7.1, we will not only be pushing the glossary information, which was always the case, but also your systems, data set attributes, and policy information as well as the associated stakeholders and the relationships as well. Now, for this information to show up in EDC, you will require EDC 10.4.1 service pack 2. And there are some enhancements like the ability to filter on your life cycle and Axon status will basically be available with the EDC 10.5. Now, because of this updated Axon scanner, you will not only see pages for the Axon glossaries with some additional metadata about the glossaries in EDC, but you will also see your Axon system pages, data set information, your policies, and so on, so that user can again review this information in EDC without having to come into Axon, and also the associations between the Axon assets, which is systems, data sets, attributes, to the physical assets as well. And the list on the left basically gives you the kind of information that will be available from Axon into EDC as part of this updated scanner. So as you can see, we are not only showing more information from EDC into Axon, we are also making enough information available from Axon into EDC as well as part of Axon 7.1. And either some parts will be available in EDC 10.4.1 service pack 2, and some will follow up in EDC 10.5. So that is kind of the first bucket. Moving on to the automated lineage. So in Axon 7.0, we introduced phase 1 of the automated lineage, which was basically meant to bring lineage from EDC into Axon by automatically creating the relationship between attributes based on the column level lineage that exists in the EDC. So again, you had two options. One is the ability to bring in the lineage automatically in case if you enable this. And if you don't, it will basically come back as a recommendation as part of the email notifications. Now, this basically requires your attributes, that are especially for the auto onboarding, the attributes to be curated and accepted before the lineage can be brought in. But if it is accepted and curated, we can help to bring the lineage between attributes automatically from EDC. Now, this will run as a daily job, so that every night the system will run a job of all the attributes that you have in Axon, and for the associated physical fields, what lineage exists, and if it has not been created in Axon so far, it will bring those lineage by creating this attribute to attribute relationship into Axon. Now, one of the things that you will require as part of this, especially with the 7.1, is that you will have to run the Axon scanner before you run this daily job, right? So it will only be able to bring the attributes that have been synced from Axon into EDC as part of the updated scanner that I talked about. And for that to happen, you need to run the scanner before the daily job runs. So again, you need to schedule Axon scanner to run on a daily basis before the jobs. And again, if you run it afterwards, as and when the information is available in EDC, the next time we run the job, we will bring the lineage from EDC. Now, automated lineage, once it is created, stakeholders will be notified and user can accept reject recommendation in case automation was not enabled. And this also requires the EDC 10.4.1 service pack 2. So let's look at a little bit more details on what was there in 7.0 versus what's coming in 7.1. In case of 7.0, the only relationship or the lineage that we were bringing from EDC to Axon was if the columns were directly connected to each other. In this case, column 1 is directly connected to column 2, and as a result, attribute 1 and attribute 2, if they are linked to column 1 and column 2 respectively, the lineage will be brought in by creating the attribute to attribute relationship. But what was not brought is the relationship between attribute 2 and attribute 3, since the column 2 and column 5 were not directly connected to each other. Now that has changed in 7.1, and as a result, even if the two columns are connected to each other via multiple hops, we will still be able to bring that lineage and a relationship between attributes into Axon. So as a result, with 7.1, you will be able to create the complete lineage between attribute 1 and attribute 3, which flows through attribute 2. So that's a bit on the lineage automation side of things. So let's go to the third bucket, which is the whole rule-driven onboarding. So as part of Axon 6.0, we introduced automated onboarding, which allowed you to bring in assets from EDC into Axon. Now, there were some concerns there, especially the automated onboarding work at the system level, and you could not exclude any items from that, or basically say, these are the only items I want to govern as part of Axon. So as part of rule-based onboarding, we are allowing you to define a set of rules for every system. So again, this is at a system level, and so for every system, you will be able to define a set of rules, and only the assets, the physical fields that match the criteria based on the rules that you've provided, only those assets will be brought into Axon. Now, there are two options really for you here, right? One is you can enable the automation if you think the rules are great, but and kind of proven. But if you want to still, if you're not comfortable and if you don't want to bring in the automation yet, you can always download and preview the items that match the criteria based on the rules, and then manually upload those files as and when you have reviewed those files, and those are the ones that will get created in Axon. Now again, there is a option available, right, for onboarding, and this is going to be available at the system level. So you, again, every system owner has the flexibility of defining the kind of, or using the kind of rules that they want, as well as whether they want automation or not to be enabled. So what kind of rules we are talking about here? So the rules that you can create are, again, going to be based on the regular expressions, and those can be based on the name of the parent. It can be based on the parent type, and then the path information. So, and again, these are the regular expression based on those three criteria. Additionally, you can also apply filters such as, only bring in the attributes of the fields which are physical, which has a glossary associations. Bring in only assets which are key data elements. Bring in only certified assets. Bring in anything that has a confidence score of 95% and higher, right? So again, these are additional criteria that you can apply over and above the regular expression-based rules that you have provided. We are also allowing you to use either the physical name and field name, which is your technical name and description, or the glossary name and description as part of the attribute creation in Axon as well. Now, on the right, what you see are some of the examples of the kind of rules that you can create. For example, you can say, filter only based on one or more schemas. So for a resource, I only want to bring in assets that belong to one or more schemas, right? Or say a couple of schemas as an example. You can always say, also bring in everything that's where the parent name has prod or production in their name, right? So again, it's a regular expression and you can provide that. And you can also provide a combination of those, saying, bring everything with prod or production, but only from specific schemas, right? So again, those kind of rules will allow you to define exactly what you want to bring in from EDC into Axon for governance perspective. And again, you can manually create those or enable automation for every system, in which case system will automatically create those every night once the job has been run. Now, here's a kind of a eye chart of the regular expressions that we will be supporting, but pretty much what the regular expression patterns that Java supports, we will be supporting as part of the rule definitions. Now, here's a view of a system edit page, wherein you will be able to provide those rules or select the rules from those available. Now, those rules are going to be defined by the administrator as part of the admin panel, and the system owner will be able to pick the rules from the ones that are defined by the admin panel. So if the system owner needs an additional set of rules, you need to work with the administrator to define those and use them as part of the system. So again, the first step is when you go to the system edit page and there's a new tab that's been added called data onboarding rules. You will pick the set of the rules that are available from the list here. You will be able to download and preview the items that match this criteria. So again, if there is a criteria and if you are not yet go to enable the automated onboarding, one is you can download and preview those files. You can update the files in line and then upload it as part of your bulk upload. Or once you have previewed the file, you can always come back and enable automated onboarding, in which case at night when the job runs, it will automatically create those data sets and attributes for you. And then the last one is just an example of how the prod and the production regular expressions look like. You can see there are also other filters applied here and what information to use, in this case we are saying use the physical field name and use the physical field description instead of the glossary name and description. So that's a bit on how the automated onboarding and the rule-based onboarding works. Now, here's a sample of the preview file that we will be downloading when you click on download and preview. Again, you will see all the information about the physical fields, but you will also see the associated glossary name if there's one. You'll also see the data type and data length, as well as the primary key information here, right? So in case, again, if you want to use this, you can use this as part of the upload, as well as if when you bring it as part of the automated onboarding, this will be auto-populated as well. Now, again, as I said, the automated onboarding is going to be at the system level. So again, you can enable or disable for every single system. So that gives you that flexibility. And one point I do want to emphasize is if you do enable the option of requires an associated glossary, which is to say every physical field that gets onboarded has to have associated glossary. And if there are certain things that does not, especially for the data sets that gets created, you will have to use a dummy glossary that you will have to provide, and system will use a dummy glossary for those ones. And at some point, once the onboard is complete, you can filter on the dummy glossaries and go ahead and update those data sets to ensure you have the appropriate glossaries associated. So that's a bit on the automated onboarding and the rule-based onboarding. Now, we have also introduced one additional capability around access control in Axon. So earlier, when the Axon administrator would be onboarding assets from EDC into Axon, those administrators will be able to see every resource that's defined in EDC, irrespective of whether the user himself or herself had access to those resources of EDC or not. So with this 7.1, we are giving you an option of if you enable through an admin panel flag, we will apply the same access control that's applied to the user in EDC in Axon as well. So as a user, if I have only access to a handful of say 5 resources in EDC, the user will be able to only see those 5 resources in Axon as well from the perspective of onboarding exercise, right? So I can only onboard assets from EDC into Axon only for those 5 resources. But for the assets that's already been onboarded, like your physical fields that are already associated with the attributes and resources linked to the systems, those still will be available to all users as it is today. But the onboarding can only be done by the people who has access to those resources in EDC if enabled. Here in this case, as you can see, in EDC, if you have access to 7 resources, user will only see those 7 resources. Earlier, in the past, if there were 17 resources and user only had access to 7 resources in EDC, it would still show you 17 resources in Axon as well. Now, beyond that, there are a few other enhancements. So the first one is the ability to auto clean up the lineage, the auto created lineage only. And so the idea is if you had brought in the lineage automatically from EDC to Axon, and if those fields were cleaned up as part of the orphan links cleanup capability that was introduced in 7.0, we will now clean up the lineage as well, so that, again, if the lineage was auto-created, user doesn't need to go and clean those up. We are also adding email notifications. So earlier it was only UI notification, but we are adding email notification for the lineage onboarding for the stakeholders. We are also bringing in the ability to allow you to link your systems to the resources in bulks, which had to be done one at a time. And we are giving you an additional option of testing the connectivity to the EDC system from Axon to ensure things are appropriately configured. And last but not least, on the Axon EDC front, we are adding support for additional resources from EDC. And so the list is your ClickSense, Azure Data Lake Storage, Gen 2, SAP HANA and S4HANA, SAP BW and BW by 4HANA, and SAP ERP, right? So all those resources now are going to be available for you to onboard from into Axon. So that covers what we are bringing as part of the Axon EDC integration improvements. The second bucket I want to talk about is around the change request and the workflow enhancements. Now, there are 2 major features there. The first one is the ability to have type-based workflows for mandatory approval process. So mandatory approval is the capability where, as and when the changes are made or new objects created, system will automatically trigger creation of the change request as well as the associated workflow. Now, one of the things that we could not do in the past was have a different kinds of workflows for every type of asset. For example, if you wanted to use a different workflow for glossary of type domain versus glossary of type subdomain or business term, that was not possible. And with this feature, it basically gives you an extra flexibility, if you will, to pick and choose the workflows that you want for every type of asset. So for a glossary of type domain, subdomain, term, and metric, you can use 4 different workflows if you desire. Now, this is again available only for the assets that have mandatory approval, which is your glossary, system, dataset. And so for those ones, if you want to use different workflows, if you want to provide different default configuration for the change request creation, like the change request type and so on, you will be able to pick and choose the workflows and appropriate default parameters based on every single type. Now that needs to be enabled from the admin panel. So by default, again, you will have the 7.0 implication where the same workflow gets used. But if you enable type-based workflows, then you will have the option of picking and choosing different workflows for every type of assets. And then the second feature was the object reattestation process. So basically what we have, again, heard from a number of customers is that, especially in certain industries more than others, there's a requirement to ensure assets are basically reviewed on an ongoing basis. And so as part of the review process, idea is to automatically initiate the review process. And if there's changes are required, you make those changes. If not, you approve it and continue to move on. And this needs to happen on a recurring basis to ensure your objects are up to date and fresh and compliant with the latest and greatest in the industry. So some use cases are, again, I have my glossaries that I want to approve and ensure that they are up to date every year because my regulation requires me to. Today, you would have to do that manually. So somebody have to go and trigger change requests for all those different glossaries, and only then the system can go through this approval process. So with object reattestation, we are basically making that process simpler and automated for you. Now, again, this is available for the glossary, your system, dataset, and process. And you will be able to define a set of rules, which will include not only the frequency of when you want to initiate it, but also certain criteria like only put the published assets as part of the reattestation process. You can also put a specific glossary domain where this reattestation process applies and so on, right? So there are some filter criteria that we have provided that you can choose, and only assets that match those criteria will go through this approval process. Now, depending on the frequency and the time that you've provided, system will automatically trigger the change request as well as the associated workflow at the desired interval, which could be quarterly, which could be yearly, and it will initiate the workflow so that the approval process can begin. And if there are changes required, you make the changes depending on how your workflows are designed. And if the changes are not required, you simply approve it. And at the end of the approval process, it will be again visible to everybody. Now, there's one more change that we have made as part of this process is that we are also capturing 2 additional fields, which is the last approval date and the next review date. So when the object goes through the approval process and the review process and it is completed, the process, it will update the last approval date to the date when it was approved. And then the next review date will be set based on the frequency, depending on the rules that were provided. So if you set it annually, it will basically set the next review date 1 year from the last approval date and so on. Now, again, this is also run as a daily job. So every night this will run the job, and based on the criteria provided, it will go ahead and initiate the process. And there are some exceptions, like if the approval had happened in the last certain days, we may skip because it was very recent and you may not require a reapproval of the asset immediately. So those are the 2 main features that we introduced as part of the change request in the workflow. The first one is the type-based workflows, and then the next one is the reattestation process. So now let's move on to the other enhancements that we have introduced. So we are introducing the ability to bulk delete roles. So through the file, you could only create roles. Now you will be able to bulk delete the roles as well. And if you want to update the roles, you will be able to do so by a combination of delete followed by create. Now the template file but for the create and delete is going to be the same. And so again, it becomes easier for you to use this. Now this will also be available through APIs as well. So you'll be able to delete roles using the APIs as well without having to really upload the file, which was the case with the version 1.0 APIs. We are also introducing ability to bulk update your local and standard data quality rules. So again, In 7.0, we introduced the ability to upload those rules. In 7.1, we are allowing you to update those as well. And again, update templates have some changes that so they are revised to accommodate those updates as well. And the only thing I would like to say is there is an exception, which is the ability to link to your either a rule reference or a profile or a scorecard from DQ is not yet supported, and that is something that we will consider for the future release. We have also made a couple of improvements on the Unison search side of things. So the main one being the created by filter. So created by as a field was introduced for a number of those facets that's listed here in 6.3, but you could not filter on those. So now with 7.1, you will be able to apply a filter on created by. So you can say, show me all the items that are created by Amrish, or show all the items created by Amrish between this date and this date, right? So those kind of queries will now be possible with this filter. Additionally, we are also adding a segment column if you enable segmentation, of course, for every facet in the Unison. So if the user wants to get more information as to which segment this object belongs to, you will be able to see that as part of the Unison grid. Now, this column is going to be hidden by default. If you want it, you have to enable that. We are also bringing in the ability to navigate from Axon local data quality rule to an analyst tool and review more details about the profile on the analyst tool. So again, earlier you could link it, but the link itself was not existing. We are adding that link so that you click here and it'll open up the analyst tool and the profile in the analyst tool so that you can get more details as to what has really happened. We are also bringing in the ability to delete the drop-down values from the admin panel. So again, until now you could rename, relabel, or add the drop-down values, but you could never delete it. We are bringing that capability to allow you to delete items from the drop-down list if you no longer want to use it. Now, depending on the type of assets, either you will see a warning or an error if the value is still being used. So, for example, if you're trying to delete one of the items, say from the lifecycle statuses, and that is still being used somewhere, we will basically give you appropriate warnings and errors to ensure you remove that or you don't use it before you go ahead and delete it. Now, this largely covers pretty much the whole list. The only exception is a few items on the change request dropdowns cannot be deleted yet, and there's one on the doc upload. But barring about 7 or 8 of those items, most of the other ones now can be deleted if you no longer are using those values. Again, given you no longer use those values as part of the object definition as well. We are also adding ability to define multiple LDAPs. So again, if you as an organization have multiple different active directories that you want to connect to and bring information from or users from, you will be able to configure multiple different LDAP servers or even multiple instances of the same LDAP server as well. We are also allowing you to assign users to segments based on some of the SSO properties. And so the main properties are your email, your org unit name and reference, as well as the profile. And now this needs to be based on the regular expression, right? So you can say, if, for example, if there are a bunch of different users within your organization with different domains, but if I want to say, bring all the users with informatica.com on the domain, I can basically provide a regular expression as part of my email that will bring in only users which has informatica.com as part of their email address. We are also adding ability to share dashboards with all users. So if administrators want to create a dashboard and make those dashboards available to all users, you basically have an option to share it with public, in which case, again, all the users will see the dashboard and it will be visible for all the users who go onto their homepage. We are also adding support for Azure SQL Data Warehouse. So again, if you have your profiles and scorecards defined on top of the Azure SQL Data Warehouse, you will be able to link those to your local rules. Now, this will require the agent upgrade as well, right? But again, you will be able to link your Axon's local data quality rules to any profile and scorecards based on the Azure SQL Data Warehouse. We are also adding email notification as part of the email digest for the items that you're following as a user. So if the items have changed in the last week or since the last digest, it will now, as part of the email digest, it will tell you that this specific item that you're following have been updated with the update date and so on. We are also allowing you to change the passwords for the PostgreSQL, both during install as well as post-install. So again, if you don't want to use the default password, then change those. That will now be possible. And as part of the HTTPD logs, we are now going to be capturing user logins and logouts, so that, again, if you want to run reports and figure out how many users logged in, logged out, or who you logged in and logged out within a certain time frame, you will be able to run queries on those reports or logs and get those details. Now, we have also made some improvements on the performance side of things. So certain queries on the Unison, especially the queries that were returning large amount of results, we have improved, made some query updates to improve the performance, right? So again, you will see some improvements in especially the long running queries, where things will return faster and at a better scale. We have also made some improvements to the page load times for glossary, system, dataset, and process pages, where a lot of the information earlier was loading by default. And so some of the information that we thought was not maybe as critical, we are now making it to be loaded on demand. So the user will have to click on expand to be able to see some of that information, but that has resulted in significant improvement on the page load times. And then for those of you who are interested and have a need for more scale and concurrency, we are also introducing the ability to deploy OrientDB, which is the graph database we use, which can now be deployed as a cluster. So if you want to scale beyond what a single instance of OrientDB can handle, you can deploy OrientDB as a 2-node, 3-node cluster so that you have better concurrency across the board. Now, in terms of the faster page load times, right? So as you can see, there are certain areas that are going to be kind of collapsed by default. So in case of a glossary, the document and the scorecard; in case of a system, your data content summary and documents and so on. And they will look like this, right? So if the user wants to see it, they will have to click on it to open it. But again, that is going to provide you some significant improvements there. And in case of a glossary, we are also making one more change where the glossary itself was, the hierarchy was shown as a grid. Instead of a grid, now we are basically making that available as a path. Now again, you will have all the information, including the complete path, as well as on hover, you will be able to see the definition of those glossaries. But again, the load time has significantly reduced because we are now not loading a grid itself. We have also added a number of walkthroughs across your administrative tasks, segmentation, workflows, and change requests, as well as data marketplace. Again, this will help really the end users to educate themselves with various capabilities on how to use them. And then the last but not least, there are some updates on the PAM support as well. So we are adding support for some additional operating systems. So you will now be able to deploy Axon 7.1 on Red Hat 7.8 and 7.9, as well as SUSE 12 Service Pack 5. In terms of the browser, we are adding support for the Edge Chromium, which is Microsoft Edge Chromium. We are also adding ability to deploy Axon now on Docker. So again, if Docker is the vehicle for you to install Axon, you will be able to do so. And in case of a repository, right, again, until now you could only use the bundled PostgreSQL. But if you are on AWS or Azure ecosystem, and if you want to use RDS for AWS and Azure PostgreSQL in case of your Azure ecosystem, you will be able to use those repositories instead of the bundled PostgreSQL with the Axon for the Axon deployment. Right. So again, you have an additional option there as well. So that's what I wanted to cover from Axon 7.1, the core governance part of things. I will now hand over to Ian for him to cover the data marketplace side of things. Thank you. Ian, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Tuesdays. I'm going to provide you an overview of the new capabilities that Axon Data Marketplace will be having in Axon's upcoming version 7.1 release, which is coming later this month. I'm Ian Stahl, Senior Director of Product Management for Data Governance Solutions, and me and my colleague Kate Amory, who's a specialist in product marketing, will be providing this overview for you today. Marketplace was conceived to address a widely shared problem among our CDOs and executive sponsors of our customers' data governance programs. that needs to get relevant data to consumers across lines of business that need it to affect real business outcomes, and to do so on a self-service basis. There are many challenges associated with accessing relevant data in a convenient and timely way, as these IDC statistics about data user patterns indicate. Just finding the data in the first place, assessing what's in it, ensuring that it's fit for the intended use, or that you can use it with the organization's sensitivity and privacy policies. These add up to create friction in the pipeline of data delivery to organizations large and small. And as the volume of data consumers grows, the friction associated with getting that data compounds with it. Because as the number of data consumers across the business who require data to do their analytics grows, the requisite know-how to find and access that data they need, technical skill or baseline data literacy, falls through the floor. While organizations have tried to compensate for this gap with training and enablement, it's not clear, once again, that practices of the past will scale to the needs of the future. What's really needed to meet these business data consumers where they are is a self-service model tailored to their needs and technical skill level. Governance addresses many of the issues that inhibit self-service use, hence the need for governed data democratization. Governance helps define common business language consumers use to understand data, helps them discover the sources of data that are relevant for their needs, and automatically tag the meaning of that data so that they can understand it better. Helps them ensure that data is fit for purpose before it's delivered to consumers, cleansing and standardizing it as the needs arise. Aligning the data they're using to the master data domains that confirm the reliability and trust of that data when it's used in their analytics or operations processes. Ensure that data is protected where it is used, and make that data available in the format and location wherever consumers need it. Governance addresses all of these issues and many more for the consumer. And as our friends at IDC would say, automating these processes for scale is what enables organizations to meet those geometrically expanding consumer demands. That's where the data marketplace comes in. We launched Axon Data Marketplace with version 6.3 less than a year ago, and we've been making steady improvements ever since. It's still the industry's only enterprise-scale governed data marketplace that leverages intelligent capabilities to enable self-service data delivery at the scale our customers require. And we've been working diligently in version 7.1, due later this month, to move the ball on marketplace self-service capabilities along these main priority themes. Marketplace operationalization, plugging marketplace into the existing IT and data management processes to optimize timely data delivery and access to all consumers who request data through the marketplace. Collaboration and crowdsourcing, using marketplace as a channel to obtain direct feedback from consumers on what data they need, what they use, how they use it, and how they like it. More importantly, what data they need in the future to support their data analytics and operational outcomes. Merchandising, leveraging tools of the trade to enable data owners to market relevant data to their consumers that need it, as well as making it as frictionless as possible to consumers to find the data they're looking for, using tools and language they're familiar with because they use them every day. Starting with promotions, we introduced tile-based views into the home page in the first release back in December. Since then, we've been expanding the use of tile presentation more broadly based upon customer and user feedback, including in the category display for data search, for personal homepage views, to convey relevant data up front. We've integrated Marketplace's order management with Axon services to provide both in-app and email notification of order activity to keep Marketplace producers and consumers up to date on their next actions. We've optimized the presentation of marketplace data sets so that users can see specific fields of data, order, attributes, or other content in contextually relevant marketplace views. These can be set per user preference and create templates to download marketplace lists if needed for offline review. Marketplace version 7 allows consumers with access to marketplace data to rate and comment on their experience using that data, which can be used by other consumers to assess that data's applicability to their needs. And those ratings are exposed through search and filter so users can search on highly rated data. And if they can't find the specific data they're looking for, they can request updates or changes, or even whole new data assets based on pre-existing precedents. These requests go right through the order management process, allowing data owners and engineers to assess them and ensure they produce the right data assets to fit their request. We've optimized marketplace search that users can now find data they're looking for across an array of dimensions, tagging multiple glossaries, system, owner policy, and other parameters, which we get from Axon automatically. We've got a lot of feedback asking for broader coordinated visibility into the state of active user access requests in Marketplace. And so we've centralized a number of tasks for order management into an order inventory view available from the data owner's homepage. This allows, as well as from the local data collections view. This provides direct visibility to order processing, the ability to review, and when necessary, reprocess or revoke consumer access grants. As Marketplace has matured as an application, we've introduced a number of new management and configuration functions, which we provisioned as part of the Axon admin console in previous releases. To make this administration better with fewer issues with dependency configuration and such, we've consolidated Marketplace into its own administration view. Now Marketplace admins can control all aspects of their config, specifying provisioning and delivery, customization of orders, integration with ServiceNow from a central location available specifically to them. And now, ably assisted by my colleague Kate, we'll do a quick walkthrough of Axon Data Marketplace version 7.1 to give you a taste of the new capabilities we've introduced. Marketplace allows data producers and consumers to collaborate through a simple storefront experience that allows data producers to create and publish governed data assets so that consumers can shop for them through that storefront experience and get access to the data they need. We'll use this three-part structure to walk through the demonstration of how 7.1 capabilities enhances each of these user experiences. First, create and publish.
Carrie is a data owner who would like to ensure that the analytics team at her company get access to the best possible data to do their jobs. She has recently created a customer dataset from MDM and has quality checks performed on it to ensure it is fit for purpose. Carrie prepares the dataset for publication by editing the description so that it more accurately describes the data within it. She then double-checks that the dataset and attributes within it have been linked up to all the appropriate policies, ensuring that when it is published, those requesting access to it will know how it has to be treated. By viewing her dataset in the Unison grid after carrying out her checks, Carrie can select to publish this to the marketplace. She will have to choose which category it belongs in and give it a prefix so the data consumers who are looking for it can easily locate it. Once published, Carrie may want to enrich certain things on the collection to make it as simple and easy to consume as possible for the data shoppers. You can see the quality has come in from Axon, and the data collection is well described, but she will want to update the delivery method as it is currently showing as other. By selecting the data lake, she is telling consumers how easy it will be to get hold of this data. It has been added to the lake, and she will be able to provision it without much trouble. As a final enrichment, Carrie is also able to give her data collection an initial rating. This way she can recommend it to colleagues and call out anything they should know in the related comment. That way they too can start benefiting from her data and rating and commenting on it going forward.
Next, shop and check out.
Sandra needs credit and customer data for her next analytics project. She has just requested the credit data and is now on the hunt for the customer data. There are what look like some good options in the carousel, including a data collection called Customer Master Data, which has consumers, a high rating, and strong data quality. Sandra could click straight into this collection, but decides to have a quick review of what else is out there by clicking into the customer category. She knows she wants well-reviewed data, so immediately adds the rating filter, ensuring she will only see collections which have been given 4 stars and above. She also needs the data collection to contain customer age and address for her analysis, so adds these filters to the glossary search. Sandra can see the dataset she noticed being promoted earlier in the carousel. She clicks into it for more detail. Unfortunately, access via the data lake is not available, and Sandra is concerned that data warehouse access will be slow. The ratings and comments confirm her suspicions. She could choose to have a new and similar data collection added to the lake, but this too would take time as it would have to be created. First, she should explore all options. The FS MDM data collection does seem to be available via the lake, and also has a reasonable rating. So Sandra confirms the quality of the attributes she needs is sufficient and decides to order the data collection. She has already written out the business justification when completing her last request, so chooses to reuse the details explaining the urgency behind it. Sandra is happy to agree to the personal data policies related to the data and completes her order. She will now be able to track this along with her request for the credit data until they are complete.
And finally, fulfill and track.
Laura Travers is a technical administrator of the data marketplace. That means she is in charge of making sure data is delivered once it has been requested and approved. She's also integrally involved in the running of Marketplace and would have helped to set it up, i.e. she might have determined the default policy for data access, as well as the possible ways in which data could be delivered, and the custom fields added to orders for existing data and requests for new data. She would also play a part in deciding if data requests should be handled internally or using an external IT system like ServiceNow. As a technical admin, Sandra can in fact take on the role in any fulfillment process to fulfill a data collection, but where she is specifically named as the technical owner, she will be called to action with notifications and also a personal email. In this order, she is being asked to expedite the data for Sandra with support of senior management, so she will act on it as quickly as possible. Once she has taken the necessary actions to grant Sandra access, she will fulfill the ticket with a comment explaining how she should get to the data. Flora's Inventory tab allows her to track access, showing all the data access details for the shoppers who are consuming Marketplace data. Sandra's request can be seen here as it has just been fulfilled, so she is officially a data consumer. The order inventory gives a more complete view of orders. Some are still pending initial approval from their business owner, some are at the fulfillment stage with Flora, and one has been rejected. Flora can see everything outstanding in one place by clicking into Tasks, where she will work through the orders, ensuring the data is delivered as efficiently as possible.
Thanks, Kate. And that's how Axon Data Marketplace works. And that's how it's been enhanced in version 7.1 to further align with the needs of your data consumers, to help them find data that they need, ensure its trust and compliance, while producers get more out of the data that they're producing, while reducing the cost of operating a data team. Before I let you go, I wanted to make you aware that we publish a sister playbook for Axon Data Marketplace, and it's being continually updated to keep you informed of how to best take advantage of our new capabilities. Now, this playbook is available on our Data Governance Communities portal, and it's being updated for version 7.1 later this quarter. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone, can we please have all your questions posted in the Q&A box? Amrish, we have one question from Tamil. When is Axon 7.1 release?
Axon 7.1 will be releasing in about a week and a half, so we are looking at end of next week.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Beatrice. When will this document be available with the 7.1 improvements?
Hi, Beatrice. This is Ian. I was going to say, I believe that we repost this presentation along with the recording of the session after the live event finishes. So it should be available to you online sometime later on today or tomorrow, I think. Is my understanding?
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
The video will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and also the Success Portal. You will also be able to download the deck from Success Portal. Thank you. Next question from Tamil. What is the timeline for Axon DQ automation for Azure SQL database and IBM database EZOS?
Yeah, so basically we have a roadmap next year for addressing a lot of those DQ automation sources, which does include IBM, DB2ZOS, as well as the Azure SQL Data Warehouse. So DB2ZOS, we are looking at likely the first half of next year, and then the Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Azure SQL Database, most likely the second half of next year. It is still not a committed date, but this is a tentative plan at this point.
Thank you. Please post your questions in the Q&A box. We have Ian and Amrish at the back end to help you with your queries. Another question from Tamil. Can you confirm once again the features not available until EDC 10.5 release date?
So the main one that will not be available. So there is an Axon scanner that was updated as part of 7.1, which will be leveraged by EDC. And the information itself will be available based on the scanner update, but the additional filtering that is happening, which allows you to filter out objects based on the lifecycle status as well as Axon status. For example, if you don't want to bring in anything that's not yet published, as an example, right? From the glossary perspective, that filtering capability will be available with EDC 10.5. But the information itself for the assets that we are bringing in will be available based on the list that I had shown earlier.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Christy. Can you add images of a data set into data marketplace?
Hey, Christy, yeah, that's a great question. So at this time in Marketplace version 7.1, we surface information that we're getting from the Axon data set, but at this time not the attachment content that actually could be attached to the data set. It is something that we're looking to add in versions in our upcoming release in first half of next year, in which case then we would support attachments directly to data collection. Images would be supported, obviously, I think any kind of binary content. Typically, it's usually documentation, like data dictionary content, usage guide documentation, things like that, that most of our customers are looking for in terms of using the attachment feature, but it is something that we're working on. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Next question from Dan Gordon. With respect to Axon honoring EDC permissions on a resource, if the resource manager has permission to bring in the EDC resource, but another user does not have that permission, will the second user still be able to see the Axon dataset and its structure?
And the short answer is yes. So the privilege that we have, or that we are applying in terms of the EDC privilege applied to the Axon user, is only applicable with respect to onboarding exercise. So when you are creating your data sets and attributes and linking them to the appropriate physical assets, that exercise of onboarding and bringing things in from EDC perspective is where this permissions will apply. But again, those assets that are already governed, and if you have your attributes linked to a bunch of physical fields, and even if you don't have access to the resource, you will still be able to see those associated assets in Axon.
Thank you, Amarish. Next question from Hunter. Is it possible to move objects between segments? For example, after onboarding a physical field associated with a glossary object, can the glossary object be moved to another segment?
You can move assets across segments, but one of the restrictions that we have in 7.0 and even in 7.1 is that you cannot have your objects linked across segments. So if you have an attribute defined and glossary defined in one segment, and then if you want to move the glossary into another segment, that will basically violate that condition as saying that the objects have to be in the same segment. So that's a violation right now, and you cannot do so. We will be adding that ability to have relationships across segments in 7.2, which is again April next year. But yeah, with that, you will be able to move content that is connected to other assets while going across the segment boundaries.
Thank you, Amarish. Another question from Christy. Will there be Axon utilization reports based on HTTPD logs in the future?
No, the reports that we are looking at providing will not be based on the logs. It will directly come from the databases. So the answer is no. It will be based on the views from the database as well as the dashboarding that we may provide in the future.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Christy. Are the reports slated for 7.2 or what version?
So again, it is we are looking at making some views available in 7.2. We are finalizing the scope, and as updated, we can provide more details. But yes, there are some thoughts on making some of those stats available in 7.2. likeliest views.
Thank you, Amrish. Another question from Zab. Any known challenges with upgrade from 7.1?
No, there are no known challenges in the sense if you are upgrading from 6 onwards. If you are going prior to 6.1, if you are on version 6.1 or prior, in that case, the upgrade to 7.1 will require a two-step process to upgrade to one of the intermediate versions and then to 7.1. But directly coming from 6.2 or above, I think we should be there's no known issues really. Yeah.
Filter-based unison search.
No, it's not possible to search or apply filter based on the relationship type in the unison search. It only shows you related assets, but not really applying for the filter on what type of relationship it is.
Joining the call. Thanks for spending some time for the webinar, Ian and Amrish. Thanks a lot. Hope everyone is safe at this point. The recording will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success Portal. Also, you can put in your feedback after this webinar in our survey that follows. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye. See you on our next Tech Tuesday.